When you find yourself repeatedly encountering toxic people, those who drain your energy, manipulate your emotions, or exploit your kindness, it's tempting to focus entirely on their behavior. We analyze them, diagnose them, blame them. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Before toxic people gain control over your life, they first look for openings within your identity. They exploit what's uncertain inside you. That means the work doesn't begin with trying to understand them. It starts with fully understanding yourself. Toxic individuals, consciously or not, are skilled at identifying who lacks a firm grasp on their values, their boundaries, or their self-worth. Why? Because those are the easiest people to manipulate. If someone isn't sure what they deserve, they're more likely to accept poor treatment. If you don't know your no, then someone else will define your yes. That's how manipulation begins, not with a loud, obvious insult, but with a subtle erosion of your identity, bit by bit. Your identity is your internal compass. It tells you what's right for you, what you believe, what your standards are, and how you expect to be treated. When you know who you are, you don't have to perform for validation. You don't explain your worth. You embody it, and people notice. The same way a strong immune system fights off infections, a strong identity naturally repels toxic personalities. You don't even need to tell people, I don't tolerate this. They feel it in how you speak, how you carry yourself, and what you walk away from. Think of your sense of self like a house with strong walls and clear doors. When your identity is secure, you know exactly who gets to enter, under what terms, and what to do when someone disrespects your space. But when your identity is shaky, when you're not sure who you are or what you deserve, your boundaries become like unlocked doors. Toxic people don't need to break in, they just walk right through, not because you're weak, but because you're undefined. Many people were never taught how to build a strong identity. Maybe you were raised to be a people pleaser, rewarded for obedience rather than confidence. Maybe your past experiences taught you that your voice didn't matter, or that conflict should be avoided at all costs. These habits don't make you bad, but they do make you vulnerable, and toxic people look for vulnerability, not so they can help it, but so they can exploit it. So how do you strengthen your identity? Start by defining your values. Not the values others gave you, your parents, your culture, your environment, but the ones you choose for yourself. Ask, what matters to me more than approval? What am I unwilling to compromise on, even if it costs me a relationship? When you get clear on your values, decision-making becomes easier. You no longer get pulled into drama, guilt, or second-guessing. You act from clarity, not confusion. Next, observe your emotional reactions. Do you feel responsible for how others feel? Do you apologize when you've done nothing wrong? Do you shrink to make others comfortable? These are signs of an identity that's been shaped by survival, not self-definition. And survival isn't the same as strength. Strength is rooted in self-trust. It says, even if this person disapproves, I still know my worth. That kind of quiet confidence doesn't make you loud, aggressive, or harsh. It makes you stable, grounded, and emotionally unavailable to chaos. There's a psychological concept called emotional congruence. It means your inner values align with your outer behavior. People who lack emotional congruence are often the ones who get stuck in toxic cycles. They say they want peace, but entertain drama. They say they want honesty, but tolerate deception. This split between inner values and external behavior creates an internal tension of vulnerability, and toxic people are drawn to that inconsistency. Why? Because it tells them you're still negotiating with yourself. You must become non-negotiable about your peace. That begins with recognizing that your life is a reflection of your standards. If toxic people keep showing up, ask yourself, what am I doing consciously or unconsciously that signals I'm available for this? What silence have I allowed that should have been a stop? What chaos am I tolerating in the name of love, loyalty, or fear? And here's the final truth. When you become grounded in who you are, you'll lose people. People who benefited from your confusion will disappear. People who like the version of you without boundaries will say you've changed. They'll be right, you have changed, you've gone from accessible to intentional, and the cost of your clarity is that it makes others uncomfortable, but the reward is your peace. So you want to stop attracting toxic people. Don't try to fix them. Fix the parts of you that allowed them to get close in the first place. That's not blame, that's power. Because when you become clear, calm, and unshakable in yourself, definition, you don't need to fight toxic people anymore. You simply stop inviting them in. Every relationship you have, personal, professional, romantic, is a form of teaching. You are constantly showing people how to treat you, not by your words, but by what you accept, allow, and tolerate. The problem is, most people don't realize that silence is still communication. When someone crosses a line and you say nothing, you're not neutral. You're giving permission. And over time, what started as a one-time offense becomes a pattern, then a dynamic, and eventually a relationship built on imbalance and disrespect. It's not enough to want respect. You have to set the conditions under which it can exist. People will test your boundaries not always with bad intentions, but often with curiosity or habit. Some are used to dominating conversations, interrupting others, or using guilt as a tool to control outcomes. If you don't push back, correct the behavior, or remove yourself from it, you end up reinforcing it. Human behavior is based on response. If I do something and you allow it, I learn, this is acceptable here. This is where many people struggle, because we're taught to be polite, agreeable, and forgiving, often at the cost of our peace, saying it's okay, when it isn't, saying I understand, when you feel violated, smiling when you're hurt. These are habits of emotional self-abandonment, not strength, and they teach others something dangerous, that you're willing to betray your own needs to preserve the comfort of others. Toxic people exploit that. They don't need to be smart or manipulative to do it. They simply observe your tolerance, they watch what you accept. The first time they raise their voice at you and you don't leave, they note it. The first time they lie and you don't confront it, they remember. And every time you choose peace over principle, they expand their power. That's how toxicity grows. Not in loud explosions, but in silent concessions. The truth is, your boundaries are your curriculum. Every time someone interacts with you, they're learning your rules, your thresholds, your expectations. And the more you allow without consequence, the more you're training people that you're negotiable, that your value is flexible, that your presence doesn't come with conditions. It's hard to see this when you're in it, especially if you're emotionally attached to someone. But emotional attachment is not an excuse for emotional submission. You have to ask yourself, what am I teaching people through my tolerance? If you constantly accept late apologies, broken promises, or one-sided relationships, then you're not just being understanding. You're being complicit in your own mistreatment. And I say that not to shame you, but to empower you. Because the moment you change what you accept, the entire equation of that relationship shifts. You take back power. You create discomfort, for them, yes, but also for yourself, because growth always requires discomfort. There's a psychological principle that explains this, reinforcement theory. Behavior that is rewarded tends to be repeated, but what most people miss is that lack of resistance is also a reward. If you don't push back, that too is reinforcement. Think of it like training a dog. If it jumps on you and you don't correct it, you're not just being nice. You're teaching the dog that jumping is acceptable. People are no different. They respond to patterns, to consistency, to reinforcement. So if you want to break the cycle of toxic relationships, stop trying to change the other person. Start changing your own thresholds. The next time someone disrespects you, don't explain your boundaries. Enforce them. Don't beg for kindness, require it. Don't make a scene, make a decision. That decision may cost you a connection, a friendship, even a relationship, but it will buy you something far more valuable, self-respect. You teach people how to treat you by what you reward. If you reward bad behavior with forgiveness, you'll get more bad behavior. If you reward emotional distance with patience, you'll get more avoidance. But if you reward honesty, consistency, and mutual respect with access to your time, your energy, your presence, then you'll begin to attract people who are aligned with your values. The shift isn't immediate, but it's powerful. And yes, this can be lonely at first. When you raise your standards, you lose people. But losing people isn't the problem. Keeping people who are misaligned is. Every time you say yes to someone who drains you, you're saying no to your peace. Every time you excuse mistreatment, you delay your healing. And every time you prioritize comfort over self-respect, you reinforce the idea that your needs come second. At some point, you have to stop being surprised by people treating you poorly and start examining the rules of engagement you've allowed. When people know they can disrespect you without consequence, they will. When they know your forgiveness comes faster than your boundaries, they'll lean on it. But when you become a person whose tolerance is aligned with self-respect, when your kindness has limits and your empathy has edges, you stop attracting toxicity. Not because it disappears, but because it no longer feels at home with you. Most people assume that attracting toxic people is purely about external circumstances, bad luck, bad timing, or bad judgment. But the truth is more subtle and far more powerful. You often attract the kind of energy that matches your inner state. If you're constantly pulling in people who hurt you, manipulate you, or drain you, it may be because you haven't yet healed the part of yourself that sees those people as familiar. We don't just attract what we want, we attract what we're aligned with. And sometimes, without realizing it, we're aligned with dysfunction. It's uncomfortable to admit, but many of us confuse chaos with connection. If you grew up in an environment where love was unpredictable, where attention had to be earned, where affection was inconsistent or conditional, then your nervous system became wired for survival, not peace. You learned that to feel close to someone, there had to be tension, drama, or a constant sense of instability. That becomes your emotional home. And even if you say you want peace, calm, or consistency, those things might feel foreign or even boring because they don't match the emotional landscape you were conditioned to live in. This is why people repeat toxic patterns, even when they swear they want something better. You're not repeating the past because you enjoy pain. You're repeating it because it feels familiar. The brain and body crave what they know. If your emotional template was built in chaos, it will pull you back toward people who feel chaotic. Not because you like them, but because your subconscious says, this is what closeness feels like. Until you become aware of this pattern, you will continue to attract people who reflect your wounds rather than your worth. Healing isn't just about getting over the past, it's about rewiring your emotional instincts. It means learning that calm isn't boring, that safety isn't weakness, and that love shouldn't feel like you're walking on eggshells. It's about retraining your mind and body to recognize healthy as desirable, not dangerous. Because if healthy relationships make you anxious and toxic ones feel exciting, that's not intuition, that's trauma. Many people try to fix others as a way to heal themselves. They choose partners or friends who are broken, angry, or unavailable, thinking, if I can love them enough, maybe I'll finally be worthy. That's not love. That's reenactment. It's your inner child trying to earn the love they never consistently received. But no amount of fixing someone else will fix you. The more you take on other people's pain, the more you delay your own healing. You don't become whole by rescuing others. You become whole by confronting the part of you that thought rescuing was love. This is why doing the inner work is critical. Healing is not optional. It's foundational. Without it, you will continue to attract people who match your unhealed state. That healing may require therapy, journaling, setting new boundaries, or even spending time alone to reconnect with your own values. And yes, healing is uncomfortable. It forces you to sit with loneliness, grief, and discomfort. But discomfort is not your enemy. It's the doorway to transformation. You can't attract healthy people if yourself worth is still dependent on being needed, being accepted, or being praised. When your energy says, I need someone to complete me, you attract people who are also incomplete and often needy in destructive ways. But when your energy says, I'm whole, and I invite people who respect my wholeness, you naturally repel those who seek to manipulate, use, or diminish you. Toxic people are often drawn to healers, fixers, empaths, people who give too much and ask for too little. If that's you, then the work is not to become colder or harder, but clearer. You don't need to lose your kindness, you need to root it in strength. You don't need to stop giving, you need to start discerning. You're not here to save everyone, you're here to stay intact. Your job isn't to absorb other people's pain, it's to protect your peace. As you heal, your taste in people will change. What used to excite you, emotional highs, unpredictability, the chase will begin to exhaust you. And what once felt boring, steadiness, clear communication, respect will start to feel like home. That's how you know you're growing. When you no longer mistake intensity for intimacy, or silence for safety, or control for care, you're not just attracting different people. You're becoming a different person. The kind of people you attract always reflects your internal reality. When your identity is rooted in self-respect, your energy shifts. You stop explaining your boundaries and start enforcing them. You stop hoping people will treat you better and start walking away the moment they don't. You stop needing to be understood by toxic people because you've finally understood yourself. Healing isn't glamorous, it's slow, it's daily. It's full of setbacks and revelations. But it's the only path to peace. And peace is not the absence of people. It's the presence of clarity. When you become clear on what you deserve, you stop negotiating with people who offer less. When you become full within yourself, you stop seeking people who take. You don't push toxic people away. They fall away naturally, not because they've changed, but because you finally have. There's a major misunderstanding about boundaries. Most people think setting boundaries is about building walls, shutting people out, becoming distant, or emotionally disconnecting. But that's not what boundaries are. Boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They don't isolate you, they protect you. They don't stop connection, they refine it. A boundary is not meant to make you untouchable. It's meant to make you intentional about who gets access to your time, your energy, and your emotional space. You see, the purpose of a boundary isn't to punish others. It's to protect yourself. It's about drawing a clear line between what is acceptable and what is not. And when you establish that line, you're not being rude or selfish. You're being responsible for your own well-being. Because if you don't protect your peace, nobody else will. People will always take as much as you allow, not because they're evil, but because human nature often pushes limits. And if you don't define where your line is, someone else will define it for you. People often avoid setting boundaries because they're afraid of how others will react. They fear being seen as mean, difficult, or cold. They fear the guilt that comes with saying no, or the discomfort of being misunderstood. But avoiding boundaries to make others comfortable is just another form of self-abandonment. You end up sacrificing your own needs to avoid upsetting someone else. And every time you do that, you teach yourself that your discomfort is less important than their approval. You can't build a peaceful life if you're always trying to manage everyone else's emotions. Boundaries are the language of self-respect. They say, I value myself enough to protect my space. And yes, not everyone will like your boundaries. Some people will get defensive, others will push back, and that's actually useful. It reveals who respects you and who only benefits from your lack of limits. When someone resists your boundary, they're not revealing a misunderstanding. They're revealing an entitlement to your energy. The people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries, even if they don't fully understand them. They may ask questions, they may need clarity, but they won't try to guilt or shame you into changing them. On the other hand, the ones who manipulate, gaslight, or guilt trip you for setting a boundary are exactly the reason you needed one in the first place. Let their reaction be information, not intimidation. Boundaries work because they give people the opportunity to either rise to your standard or remove themselves from your space. Either way, you win. You're no longer guessing who belongs in your life. You're letting your standards do the sorting. The people who don't respect your boundaries are the same ones who would eventually betray your trust. So it's not rejection. It's redirection. You're not pushing people away. You're guiding yourself towards safer, healthier relationships. There's a difference between kindness and compliance. Kindness is rooted in strength. It says, I see you, I care about you, but I won't allow myself to be harmed to help you feel better. Compliance says, I'll do whatever it takes to keep the peace, even if it costs me my integrity. The world doesn't need more people, pleasers. It needs more people who can be compassionate without compromising themselves. You don't have to make grand announcements when setting boundaries. Sometimes the most powerful boundary is silence. Sometimes it's changing how often you engage, how much you share, or how quickly you respond. A boundary can be as simple as not answering your phone during certain hours, or not tolerating conversations that drain your energy. You don't have to justify or explain your boundaries to everyone. No is a full sentence, I'm not available for that, is a complete thought, and I don't accept that behavior, is a clear directive. Boundaries should be firm, but they don't need to be harsh. You can be direct without being aggressive. You can be clear without being cruel. It's not about attacking others. It's about honoring yourself. And the more consistently you hold your boundaries, the more your life becomes a reflection of mutual respect instead of silent resentment. If you want to stop attracting toxic people, start communicating your limits with clarity and consistency. When you stop over-explaining, over-apologizing, or overcompensating, you send a powerful message. I am not available for disrespect, manipulation, or emotional confusion. Toxic people lose interest in those they cannot control. And boundaries are the one thing they cannot bypass if you're consistent. Yes, it may be uncomfortable at first, especially if you've been the one who always says yes, always fixes everything, always puts others first. But discomfort is part of growth. Every boundary you set is a step towards self-mastery. Every time you choose peace over people pleasing, you reinforce your self-worth, and eventually, what once felt difficult becomes natural. The more you honor your boundaries, the more aligned your life becomes. You'll attract people who meet you with the same respect you show yourself. You'll experience relationships based on authenticity, not obligation. You'll stop feeling resentful, used, or drained, because you'll finally be living in a space of clarity, not chaos. Boundaries are not the end of connection. They are the beginning of healthy ones. They don't make your world smaller. They make your world safer, and when your world becomes a place where only the respectful, the kind, and the conscious are allowed in, you stop surviving your life and start creating it.